Morning guys. So I've got two themes of today's video for you. The first one is a catch up of where we are here and a look forwards, because we've got an awful lot going on as always. And the second theme is free stuff, which I love. And we're going to be surrounded by it throughout this video. So I'm going to start right here. This is some used bedding, some used pony bedding. Now, where this has come from, they've taken all of the manure out and they've put that to one side because they use that themselves. But this bedding is just left over. It's semi-clean, and we're going to use this to mulch the rest of our beds. We started mulching some of our bed a couple of weeks ago now, and strictly speaking, it's a bit late. I'd like to have done this much earlier in the season because a lot of the ground would have benefited from it through this dry weather that we've had. But sooner late than never, and as always, you guys who've watched me for a little while will know, the same old excuses. They're not excuses, they're just the truth. You know, we moved house earlier in the year and we've been playing catch up ever since with the garden. So we're going to mulch all of this bed now, mulch up through there, and we're doing it with free products. Now, even the wood chip was free, and I could have got more of that, but it was just so much easier and more convenient to pick up this, and I found it on Free Cycle. Someone was giving it away, and we've got a nearly unlimited supply of it now. So like I said, I've picked up 6 of these bags. They're massive, and I've got another 6 to collect when my car's back. My car's in the garage at the moment, so I've got no way of towing my trailer. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the benefits of mulch because I feel like I did that last time. I'm just going to get on and mulch this bed, and then we'll whip round. I've got a lot of other things I want to show you. We do have some bindweed creeping through this bed, so obviously I'm pulling up as much of it as I can find before I mulch, which is something I do very, very regularly. Is this a battle I can win? I don't know. So if you've ever won the battle against bindweed, please let me know. I work under the assumption that every time I see the shoots, if I pull them over time, it will weaken what's under the ground because they need those leaves to photosynthesize to give them that energy. So that's the basis that I work on, but it's a very long game and it's not a fun one to play. So if you've ever won the battle against bindweed, please do let me know in the comments and let me know how. So that's all my mulch done, but before I leave the Brassica cage, I've got 3 things to show you and 1 thing to do. Things I wanted to show you are our cauliflowers, so you can see them here, and they're heading up nicely. And what I've done is I've just used some string and tied these leaves up to protect their heads from the direct sun. Now that's something I think is called blanching, and what that does is it stops the head from yellowing in the sun and becoming a little bit bitter. So that's the first thing I've done. And the second thing is I've actually staked up some of our purple sprouting broccoli on these canes here. This is an old bit of copper pipe from the house renovation just here, and this is a cane that we chopped down that was growing through our wall from my neighbour's side. Yeah, staked them up because they were just sprawling all over our other crops. I will probably have to do the same with this guy down here in the future. The one in the middle is supporting himself at the moment, but I'll probably stake him as well. That's the first 2 things, and the third one is down here. And back here is such a success story. I'm so happy because all of these broccoli down here we've harvested because they bolted, but look, they're forming new heads and we're going to get additional harvests off them. I was literally ready to pull these plants out, and then 2 days later I saw they'd started forming a head. You'll see this is where the original heads were that bolted, and it sent up a little side shoot. Same over here. So we're not going to get a huge crop from these, but we're going to continue cropping them. Same down here. So I'm really thrilled because I'd written off those. We've already interplanted with the next lot of broccoli. I think this is purple sprouting broccoli, I'd have to check, which we put down in between, thinking that these were coming out. Well, they are coming out anyway. They're not going to be in here too much longer, but those guys will be ready to take over. So those are the 3 things I wanted to share with you. And the last thing, the thing I've got to do is I've just got to spend a minute tying up my tomato plant and pinching out the side shoots and what have you, and also a bit of harvesting. So this is all the foliage that I've just cut off those tomato plants, which brings me on to something else I want to talk to you about this free straw. So this is our little garden secret, the area between the polytunnel and the little summer house. This is where we keep all the stuff that we just don't want to look at out of the window. And that includes our compost bins. Now, in a small urban setting like this, these are quite likely the compost bins you're going to be using. So at this time of year, you're going to come up with quite a lot of greens, what we call greens for your compost. And as you'll know, you want to mix greens and browns, if you can, in sort of equal measure. Before I put these in, let's have a quick look inside our bin. So that's yesterday's trimming from our courgette plants. And being green heavy already, that's where a nearly unlimited supply of free straw can really come in handy. Some people, I've heard stories, actually buy straw for their compost, for their browns. Now, purely by luck, we had about a bucket full left over at the end of that bag, which we'll put in underneath our tomato greens. And that really helped it break down a lot quicker. I said I picked up 6 bags. The other 5 of these bags are down by our other plot, by the polytunnel. So it's just amazing how everything sort of fits together when you're thinking holistically and trying to do everything all as one holistic thing, you know. Having this free straw that we're using for mulch, it just made it that it was also far more convenient when it came to getting rid of the trimmings from our tomato plants. So I'm going to harvest the tomatoes from in here now and take them inside. We're getting far too many tomatoes that we can eat at the moment. So a bit later in the day, at some point, I'm going to make some salsa so we can store it. So I've just harvested the tomatoes in here, but I want to just quickly show you something I do. I don't consider myself to be a tomato expert by any stretch. I'm still learning, but there's one thing, like one of the first things you learn about training tomatoes is, so this is the main stem, the main leader, coming up through here. Okay, and we learn, let me just show you on another plant where I haven't already done it, because I've pinched out, what's called pinching out on this plant. That's not what I want to show you, but I want to just explain that first. So here's a good example. You see here, this is the main leader. This is regular growth off to the side, and then not always, but almost always, they send out a little shoot in between. So we've got a leaf branch here, leaf stem on the side of the leader, leaf stem, and then this side shoot. So we want to pinch them out, because otherwise they'll become another leader, another main stem. So if we didn't do that, we'd have effectively off each of these plants dozens of main stems, and it's just very, very difficult to manage then. Now, I've grown plants that way, and it can be just as fun, and it can be just as high yielding, in fact, I believe. But it's just a little bit more messy, it's harder to get into, and we've had it in the past where we couldn't even get in the polytunnel because the whole thing was just a jungle of tomatoes. So this way, you know, your plants are all quite organised and you can see the fruit, everything else. So that's what pinching out is. But what I just want to show you is sometimes, because at this time of year they're putting on growth so quickly, I'll come to the plant and here, so you'll see here we've got the main leader, and then we've got a leaf stem, and then this side shoot. But in the few days since I've been here, this side shoot, or since I might have missed it maybe, but the point is this side shoot has gone on and flowered. So if I find one that's got these flowers on, what I actually do is I'll strip everything off of this side shoot except for those flowers, and I'll allow it to fruit. I can't do that and hold the camera at the same time, so I'll do it and then I'll show you it done. So here's an example of what it looks like after. So that side shoot now, that'll continue to probably shoot off and try and grow on again, and we'll just have to keep trimming it. And then once we've harvested this fruit, we can just cut that off back there. Now here's an example of one from earlier in the season that really got away from me. But you'll see here, this would have been a side shoot that I would have pinched out, but it got away from me. And I've taken every single leaf, there's one to take off today, but I've taken every single leaf off this stem since it formed, and we're going to get quite a bit of fruit off of that, what would have been a side shoot that we would have pinched out. So, you know, you will get extra fruit off it, but if you want to manage your space, then that's one of the ways you do it, is by keeping them trimmed. I'd encourage you, if they've got to the point of forming flowers, then here's another one, look, that I would have done previously. So this is a side shoot that had flowers on it. So, you know, I'd encourage you to leave those flowers and harvest from them. And over here on this plant, I'm doing something completely different, because this part of the plant here had bent over and kind of snapped the stem. Now it's still alive, and I've tied it up so it may well recover. But what I'm doing down here is I'm actually allowing a new side shoot down here to form, and this will be its new leader. So if it does decide that up there's not going to do the job, it'll take over from down here again. I think that's one of the reasons why people love growing tomatoes, because you get to really be a gardener and kind of learn loads and loads of different skills just on one new plant. So in here we've got our seedlings, got some Sweden, a lot of spring cabbage. Not sure what that is because the label's at the other end. And I'm doing a lot more sowing tomorrow as well, because we have got an awful lot of space to fill down at the other plot. So I want to start sowing some crops that can all go in down there when we've really got hold of it. Something else to share with you actually is our watercress has been eaten by caterpillars. I think by caterpillars. I've caught a couple of caterpillars on there. There's one. They seem to be the same caterpillars that I'm finding on the brassicas, interestingly. I'm not too worried about this plant because I think it's super robust and it'll all just come back. But we'll see. If not, then maybe I'll have to include a big, because I want to grow lots of this. I absolutely love it. So I might include like a big, almost like a bathtub of it inside a giant brassica cage. Right, speaking of free stuff, down the side of my shed is a massive fruit cage, and it's probably the equivalent of 6 of those. So that we will set up again down at the other plot, and that was free. I think I mentioned that in a previous video. It was in an old garden that was just being cleared by my father-in-law, and he rung me up and said, "Do you want this?" Yeah. So I went and collected it, and that'll be going up down the other plot, and that's going to be our brassica cage down there. And you can imagine I could just have a bathtub in there and grow our watercress in there. So there's 2 more things I want to share with you on our free stuff tour. The first is these. These are a load of pears that we harvested from a wild pear tree. Now, if you've been following me for a little while, you might have seen the video where I found this pear tree. It was maybe 2 years ago, certainly at least a year ago. And I was absolutely thrilled because this pear tree is super early, super sweet, just delicious pears. And I was really excited at the time because we had pear trees in our garden, but these pears were ready, because they're early, they were ready like a month or more before the pears at home. So we've got these, and what I'm going to do with these is the same thing that I've done with these cherries and these plums. Now, you saw me make these cherries in syrup, so I'm not going to bother sharing that on this video, but I'm basically going to preserve them in syrup. And then in a subsequent video, what we're going to do is we're going to make some tarts or some pies, or however you want to call them, like cherry pie or cherry tart. And we're going to do them with pears, plums and cherries, because it's the simplest thing in the world. Not something I've done, so it'll be an experiment, but I've got a good feeling about how easy it will be and how delicious they will be. So I'll share that in a future video. So you might remember in the house move, I lost a bedside cabinet to my son. My wife gave it away. So I was down to 1 bedside cabinet. It's my only piece of furniture here in the bedroom. Well, I've picked this up again from Free Cycle. This was going to landfill. This is my new bedside cabinet. So that's it for this video, guys. That's our roundup of what's going on here at Self Sufficient Herb. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you ever so much for coming around with me today, and I will hopefully be putting out some midweek videos from now on. I feel like I've caught up on my backlog of other stuff I needed to do. So we've got some beekeeping stuff coming up, we've got some preserving stuff coming up, we've got some foraging stuff coming up, all sorts. Oh, one last thing. If you're interested on getting away for a weekend in September down to Devon, I am leading a full weekend's foraging course. We're going mushroom foraging, we're going plant foraging, we're going to do some preserving, we're going to do some bushcraft skills, all of those things. And it's at a beautiful hotel down in Devon called the Broomhill Estate. I'll put a link to the event in the description, but if you wanted to come down and stay for the weekend, get away, and come out and do a load of foraging at the same time, It'd be lovely to see you there. Now, if you wanted to camp, it's £300 for the whole weekend, and that includes all of your food. And if you want to stay in the hotel, there are prices for that as well, based on where you stay. It's a beautiful hotel, really, really classy. The food is amazing. The chef's fantastic. He's going to do a masterclass with everyone, teaching you how to cook with some of the things that we forage, etc., etc., etc. So check it out if you're interested on coming down. Follow the link, and I'll see you there. Other than that, I'll speak to you next time. Please make sure you press that like button, leave me a comment, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll speak to you really soon. Cheers.